do the right thing. And in CLEAR, especially since we're social justice leaders, I want leaders who do the right thing. And that's on this Zoom knows it's not easy to do the right thing. Very often there's a price to be paid, and especially as a leader of color. If as a leader of color, you're going to do the right thing, there's often a price to be paid. I have paid that price over the years. I acknowledge it. I made the choice to do that. And I was fine with it because I could wake up the next morning, look in the mirror, and I was okay with that person. So that's the one part of our leadership strand that we continue to do on a yearly basis. As I indicated, we're in our 8th cohort now. The second strand with CLEAR is the equity strand. And this initially began because of our involvement and inclusion in what's called the Fixed School Discipline Coalition. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Fixed School Discipline Coalition, but it's a group of around 30 activist groups who are addressing the inequity from policy levels to local levels as it pertains to specifically the inequity as it pertains to discipline of young males of color. We see that I've not done the research for a couple of years, but in discipline, there's a direct mirroring of the number of kids that are suspended and expelled out of school and the number of kids that are that travel, that are engaged, become part of the criminal justice system. There's a mirror. They mirror each other, especially with our young males of color, especially with African American males, and so that was a little loud. And in fact, today we had a meeting today at Fixed School Discipline Coalition, and we've sent a letter to the California School Board that is a moratorium on expulsion letter, where we're asking that coronavirus during this period of time, that all systems, all schools, school districts refrain from suspending or expelling schools further, or expelling students. They may be at that point now, but we want them to stop all action. And if a student was during this period of time, we want that to occur at the period of time when schools are back into kids that have been expelled or suspended have the opportunity to come back as they were scheduled to. We just sent that letter out today. And then our biggest equity activity is working with Randy and Dolores Lindsay, who are good friends of mine. Randy and Dolores have been friends of mine for at least 30 years. And so CLEAR actually sponsored the cultural proficiency training that took part in Visalia this past year. Pete Flores, who taught with Randy in Visalia, is a CLEAR board member and is one of my good friends. Pete and I are both ex-military folks from long ago, so we can have some real discussion about the system because we've been part of the military as well as the school system. And so we are looking at an upcoming cultural proficiency training in the area, in the Central Valley this next year. We don't know. We were right in the middle of discussion of it when this all took place. We were supposed to be meeting down in San Diego with Randy and Dolores in the center. So we don't, it of course had to be canceled. So we don't know where that's going to end up. But our intention is to continue to sponsor that with Pete and Randy. We have had equity institutes here in Fresno. We had an equity institute in Oxnard. Those are really well attended, and generally because of my experience from kindergarten as an elementary school principal all the way to doctoral level, we always want to engage activists throughout from P12 to higher education. And so that is something that we do on purpose, and we bring people in who do not provide the same type of learning that takes place in regular administrative courses. We want folks who are going to push back against the system. That is what we want. And then finally, I'm looking at the clock up here because, you know,
You're doing good. You got a few more minutes.
Oh, you know me, Kimberly. You ask a professor a question and we're good for 3 hours. So the last part of it is actually our research strand. And the research strand includes two specific areas. One of them is research that we've done on men and boys of color. We did that specifically in the Fresno County area. And if we had had the funding, we planned to actually do it throughout the Central Valley, from Merced down to Bakersfield. And hopefully we'll be able to do that in the coming year. We also have done some research, just research and data gathering for Barrios Unidos. I had two of my master's degree students working with them. And then we have a journal. We have a peer-reviewed journal. It's been in the past, it's been called the Clear Voice Journal, but we've changed the name now to Journal for the Center of Leadership, Equity, and Research. And we're moving towards making it indexed. And we developed that journal again specifically to meet the needs of young professors of color. What happens in higher education, you all know it's publish or perish in higher education. Well, many of the deans who are approving articles, many of the people on committee are white male or white females. And I'm not specifically saying they can't be allies in this, but very often a white male as a dean makes it more difficult. So what we did is we started this journal in order to provide young professors of color a place to write and publish in a culturally and racially accessed way, so that because we understand what it's like to be on the other side of that table. And so it's peer reviewed, and we have actually a special edition coming up in a couple of weeks, and that is being co-edited by someone from North Carolina, Greensboro, and Dr. Gilberto Conchas, who is down at UC Irvine. And it's the title of this special journal, and I'm going to make it available to everyone. It's Emancipatory Methodology for Social Justice in Education, Unpacking Inequality and Opportunity in Global Context. We will have, along with professors from the United States, we're looking at, we today just received our first international article. And so those are the things that we do. The way CLEAR works is that we don't really have members except for the people that participate in the peer mentoring program. As subjects come up that people are interested in, I provide my network of thousands of people. I provide the folks an opportunity to participate. I think sometimes membership doesn't necessarily work if you don't, I don't want to charge people and keep people out. I'd rather try to earn money other ways. And so that's what we continue to do. We're outside the box and loving it.
Can you repeat the name of the journal, please? Someone would like the name of the journal.
It's the Journal of the Center for Leadership, Equity, and Research. If you go to our website, the past editions are posted on the website.
I'll share your website on the page at the end. So Dr. Magdeleno will stay on to the end, and we're going to do a Q&A after our book review. And I'll share that. Okay, thank you, Dr. Magdeleno. So what you're going to see on the screen here is our first question. When you're ready, we want this to be engaging. As I look across the screen, I see everyone on here is educators, so you guys know what engagement looks like. So if you would please share, we want to start our dialogue, and I don't want to be the only one talking, but I'm excited about sharing. I actually, in chapter 1, wanted to share with you all. I guess I'll share first. Chapter 1 really changed, I'll say, the way I look at, I used to get frustrated until I read and started digging deeper and sharpening my skills. And I want to read a little excerpt for you on something that really got me excited about the work. And it was from one of the, let me see, lost my place. So here's one of the pieces I'll put out there, and I'll share more later. I don't want to speak too long, but on basically like the first page, when it talks about embracing our students and their communities for the assets that they bring to the school. And I wanted to share with you, when I get to a school campus, I notice more so at magnet schools, when we bus in and we see, and when I listen to the historical pieces in chapter 1, things that we have invented or developed that we think would enhance access, we actually further marginalize students. And I'll give you an example. At some of our magnet schools, we don't see, or there's not a lot of parent engagement. And one of the reasons I always hear is, well, parents don't have transportation to get here. So we get them to a place where they're supposed to extend their learning. However, they lose the support of their first teacher, which is their parent. So that's just something that kind of triggered wanting to know more and learn more when I think about that part of in chapter 1. So please feel free to share. And I believe you can all unmute yourself now, because I unmuted you. Are you able to? Yeah. Anyone want to share, reflecting on question number 1?
It's solid and follow up with your people. Again, you don't have time to do that.
So in what ways do you describe the inside out approach? And I just shared a little bit about chapter 1 on things, just like in history, how they had talked about things that we implemented to support student access and achievement actually has hindered them in ways and labeled our students in some ways. Anybody else want to share out on in what ways do you describe the inside out approach for you and your learning?
Can you hear me?
Is that Leslie?
Yes, Leslie.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, you good. So I use it a lot because a lot of times in doing this work, especially doing it with the schools that I serve, they'll look at cultural proficiency as their work, or the kids' work. And so using the inside out approach for me has been a win because I always describe it as it's easy to do that window view and look out the window and say it's oh damn, when really the approach should be that mirror view and that reflection of us or who the learning is what for. So that mirror view is that reflection, just like a regular mirror. It shows the reflection, the flaws and all. And so in those areas of growth, but that window view is always looking out the outside saying it's them, it's them. So rather knowing that this work is us on our journey, um, or adults on their journey when I'm working with schools, as it pertains to disproportionality and equity, just knowing that it's the work that we have to do, or the work that the adult, when I say we, that the adult has to do. Usually, I'm when I'm coaching like my teachers, especially with suspensions and stuff. Like I said, it's just that mindset of oh, it's them, it's those kids, it's the defiance, it's those terms that we really don't even have a definitive definition to, right? So just knowing that it's us doing that mirror work. Does that make sense?
It does, and it talks, and that just brings me back to what it said in the beginning in one of the forewords about the third edition. I actually have read both. It starts with the premise, and this is right out of the book, that a commitment to examining your own values, assumptions, and behaviors to ensure that the needs of the students we serve, all the students we serve, are met. So it's that inside out. Um, approach. Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
Sonia.
how are you? I just kind of want to chime in on what Leslie said. I thought that was really good because what I find is that typically your administrators want to send, the teacher or the individual who is invested out to do the work without the ownership of understanding that we need buy-in from the top in order to provide that information to teachers and for the individuals or our peers to buy into the work that we are trying to do in order to, create an environment of culturally proficient schools. So that's my thought. So I thought that was really good, Leslie.
Yes, thank you, Sonia. Hi, Shelby. Did you want to say something?
Oh, hello. It's great to be here. And just thinking as leaders, as educational leaders, the importance of that planning with your overall team as you're planning to, welcome groups onto your campus or to present the material, how important it is to make sure everyone is on the same page and that they're really immersed in the work too. And I think this is just a great opportunity for all of us, especially as in Fresno Unified, as our district moves forward with this.
Hello, Kimberly. This
Hi.
is Thomas. Being a African-American math teacher at a high school in Fresno, there's often a push for changing the student's mindset, right? We want to develop a growth mindset. And that inside out process to me speaks to changing the teacher's mindset. So we come in and an example I'll use for me is there's often students that come in midway through the year and they push them into my classroom. And when I speak and say, hey, why do you keep adding students? I already have more students than most of the teachers. It's, well, you can get along with them, or they need a good, strong teacher. Well, that's not helping to change the mindset of the other teachers around by just putting them into my class. So I think as much as we look to push the growth mindset of our students, we also need to push the changing of the mindset of our teachers.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Thomas. And I'm not sure if everyone has the book, but on page 5, when it talks about cultural proficient leadership, it's speaking to what you're talking about, Thomas. Right on. Anybody else?
Kimberly, hi.
Hi, Roddy Land.
Hi. So I'm going to go along with what Thomas shared, but just focusing on that inside out approach, right? So a lot of times we think that our teachers may not have the best interest when they don't get along with certain students, but this comes back to bias, right? An implicit bias. So then us as leaders being able to understand that it doesn't necessarily mean that they have it out for kids, but in reality, perhaps they haven't looked at their own biases within. And how do we collaborate with our staff to be aware of our own biases and how they can impede, with the work that we're doing every day. So that's, I guess, yes, as a leader, we have to think, about our own personal biases and learn from each other and be able to understand how to tackle these issues of inequities because of the biases that we have and how they impede the work that we do and how do we go around it. But also helping our staff and our teachers do the same, because if they don't engage in that reflection and that understanding of their own, we all have biases, it's how does that impede the work that we do every day to move our students that gets in the way. So being able to do that with our staff as well.
Thank you. And that paradigmatic shift in thinking is what we're all talking about. I think that's the goal. So it said on page 5, people, organizations, if we understand cultural differences, it's something to overcome, are often surprised that it is they who have to change to be effective in cross-cultural situations, not the students.
Right.
So thank you, guys. You guys are on it. So we're going to move on to question number 2. So it's going to get posted up here. Oh, I see a hand. Wait, I got to get that hand. Go ahead, Tamara.
Hey there.
Hey.
Just kind of a little bit of piggyback on what people have been saying. And, I always have a little bit of a lens on district-wide. So that idea about the inside out approach when we think about who is it that's engaging in the work, I sit down and try and reflect on, I've asked questions before, like, who should be the people who are, in the forefront? And we always make sure that we've got the teachers there, but someone had talked about administrators. And sometimes I think we tend to do middle management in our district. And I feel like if we could make it broader. So not just leadership, like certificated leadership, but we also have other staff who should be engaged in this as well. Because we're not going to be able to push forward if the only people that we are asking to shoulder this work are teachers and middle management. So
thank you. All right, Ken.
I just wanted to share that, I love seeing a number of my former students out there. That's a lot of fun. And hearing some of the terms that I've used over the years. I think that, because I've spoken to superintendents at almost every district in the Central Valley and have certainly shared that this is not, it's not top down, it's not bottom up, it's inside out. But that includes inside out for everyone. Everyone, starting with, I would say, with the superintendent, who has to show a dedication to this work or to any type of work. I think the fact that the term implicit bias was used is essential, that everyone understand that we all have bias. very often it's, you know, people of color and women that are doing this work because they're willing to admit that we all have implicit bias. But the leadership dominant group very often doesn't want to hear about it because in their mind, there's no problem. If there's no problem, then why are we having this discussion? And so I don't know who it was indicating that leaders need to take part. Well, you know, there's leaders among classified and everyone else, but I know what you're saying. Administrators, and I taught administrators for years, they absolutely set the tone on the school site. And so that's why it's so important that administrators support the work. And so that's what I want to, for now, that's what I want to say.
Thank you. Do you have another question, Tamara, or do I have to lower your hand? Okay.
I
All
think
right,
you have to. Okay.
Okay, I did it. I'm learning, you guys, learning while doing. Thank you. Okay, next question is going to be posted here. All right. Can you name the 4 tools of cultural proficiency? Even if you read them, somebody just come out with them for us. What are our 4 tools in this book, and we'll reflect on those. Or
are you ready?
Yeah, ready.
The barriers to cultural proficiency, the guiding principles of cultural proficiency, the cultural proficiency continuum, and the essential elements of cultural proficiency.
Thank you. Anybody want to share how those resonate with you, or your thoughts or wonderings about the 4 tools and how they can guide your work? I'll start with barriers, and just to share why I'm doing this today, because I want to keep my tools sharpened. I've been in education 19 years, and I think I've called Ken a couple of times or emails where I've just gotten so frustrated, and kind of like a baby when they cry because they can't tell you they want a bottle, or you're not at their level, they can't see you. I didn't have the words to support. And, you know, I've called several people on this platform here. Like, I'm so frustrated. I've even cried at many nights. But now that I have the words to put to the professional actions that I can take place, I can breathe again, you know? And so that's my belief in the work. And I believe the tool, seeing these barriers made me understand that I wasn't crazy. Well, I knew I wasn't, but the barriers, just the belief systems, like number one, the resistance to change. You know, I'm thinking we're in education, we're teaching kids, everybody wants to learn, but that wasn't it, you know. But then the historical piece that is provided helps me understand when we go back and look at history and see where we are today, to where it's lifelong learning, where we're going to see those barriers. So now when someone doesn't want to, I'll say, jump over the fence or support what's going on, I don't get angry anymore. I'm like, we need to provide more professional learning so that we can open the door to that inside out approach to get the individual or leader to look within themselves. And then I start to see change. And I've actually, since we've started using this work, I've seen many changes in individuals that you would have never thought, you know, even reaching out to me to reflect and support. So just learning these barriers and where they are, it gives me a different lens when I'm interacting with individuals that say things that before I'll be like, did you really just say that? I can't believe that. They're on a journey just like we all are. So come on, you guys. I don't want to talk the whole time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kimberly? I do not have the book just yet, but responding to barriers, I think it's important that we understand from an educational lens that oftentimes education itself is the barrier, because too often we hear folks say in education, well, parents don't want, they don't want their kids to learn, and they're not interested. Never thinking about the full picture. Do they know how to learn? Do they know what? Have they ever been given those skills? I can't imagine any parent that does not want the best for their child, whether they are on drugs or whatever. Ultimately, we all want what's best for our children. Now, if we know how to get it, that's a whole nother question. But as educators, we sign on to provide, and do the best that we can for kids. That's really what it should be about. So when you talk about the inside and outside approach, and you talk about barriers, we oftentimes become some of the largest barriers for our kids learning.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Sonia. And even though you don't have the book yet, when you get the book, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I spoke to that. You sure you weren't one of the co-authors?
I don't want to, I thank you, Miss Sonia. That was powerful. What I will tell you, because I have been through the training, but what I will tell you about the tools is what it did for me personally is it gave me a baseline, because everything in education is kind of like that data baseline. So now when I'm interacting with people or having these type of conversations, you kind of know where they're operating from, so that then you know how to address it accordingly. So it kind of gave you that, I almost want to say, that data baseline. And so even speaking to barriers, like Sonia said, that when we're interacting with parents or teachers and understanding this is just a barrier for them, that they're not even ready to go yet. And so, in learning that everybody's on their journey, you just know how to treat them accordingly, because it's not that we can't invite them on the journey. And so many times we just haven't invited people to go on the journey and allowed it to be the status quo. Oh, that's just how they are. But now we know and have the tools to kind of engage in a different conversation to invite them on the journey, so that now we can move in the right direction, hopefully.
I like that. Can I use that? I'm going to start inviting people on the journey. Thank you, Leslie. Anybody else?
Kind of going with that, I think that these tools give us the skills to differentiate the learning and learn the different levels that people are on. So in learning, like she said, is a journey. And I was having a conversation with a friend about the book before, about how often it's said like, well, it's not my job to educate them. I can't be the one that has to educate them. And our conversation was, if a person is willing to learn and willing to try to change their mindset, it is our job to educate them, because nobody else is going to do it. Yeah. And in educating them, everyone's on a different level, and these tools kind of allow us to differentiate what level they're on, so we can adjust how we're teaching and what we're teaching, or focus on overcoming the obstacle that they're struggling with. So for me, I'm new to the work as far as identifying the vocabulary and the tools and being precise in the approach. But coaching and teaching for years, I've been doing this work without the full knowledge to support the work that I'm doing. So now I'm taking the opportunity to kind of grab that knowledge and use it.
Thank you, Thomas. It's awesome to have a teacher on that is experiencing things and actually reflecting on where you are with the inside out approach. So I would say I'm new as well, like only a couple of years. Have I been doing this work, Thomas, but not in education. So I'm glad that you signed on today, because I'm actually going to bring several of the authors on to the lives on Thursday. So you'll get to ask questions and have moments if you have the time on Thursdays. And that's the purpose of this, so you can sharpen your tools. All right, Ken.
Yes, I just want to say this before time runs out, is that one of the frustrations, and remember, I began as an middle school teacher, and again, worked at every level in the system, is that educators work for a superintendent, and the superintendent works for a school board, okay? Educators cannot use the same terms that I can use in my nonprofit. And that is one of the values of CLEAR. I can talk, I'm a critical race theorist. So I can directly go to the discussion about race. I can directly go to the discussion about things that people in the system not only either do not want to talk about, or out of fear for losing their job, can't talk about. And that's the reality of it. So I have spoken, again, to almost every leader in the Central Valley, and I know what the reality of that is. That's why at CLEAR, we invite people to come in and have those tough discussions. You want to talk about race? Let's talk about race. And in my doctoral program, they didn't have any choice because they had to pass my class, and then I signed off on their dissertation. So, there was no choice. I understand that for people of color, especially African-American, Hmong, Latinos, you can't have that discussion without people shutting down, because white people don't want to be called racist, and people of color are tired of having the discussion with no change taking place. So that is one of the outlets that we provide, and I provide. I've been doing it a long time. I know you bring up the word race and all of a sudden the room shuts down. And so we develop, we have those discussions, because sometimes as teachers, as classified people, as administrators, you need to go somewhere where you can just say, you know what? This is a racial issue. This is a racial issue, and you need to go somewhere where there are people who understand that. I have agendas that sometimes never get past number one when we meet, because it is so emotional, because we're tired. We're tired of always having to face that same issue, and our kids having to face the same issue. And so Kimberly, all of my websites and numbers and everything. Feel free to share everything with the folks that participate. I've had this discussion with Randy and Dolores over the years, and I think cultural proficiency is an excellent way of doing it within the system. But I like getting to the real meat of it, and that is very often these are racial issues and class issues, and sometimes they go hand in hand.
Thank you. So since we only have 10 minutes left, I'm just going to ask this last question, so you do have time to ask an expert more questions. And this one he can actually help with, if you would, Ken. In what more do you want to know or learn about cultural proficiency? So that question is twofold for me, as I am connecting with leaders in Northern and Southern California that are in the work, and we have Ken right here in the Valley with us. So if you could share out, we're going to be taking some notes on that. What more do you want to know or learn about cultural proficiency? Please share out.
Can you hear me, Kim? It's Brittany.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. So I think for me, where I'm at with this work is, what do you do when people don't want to do the work? And how do we hold those people accountable? And I know that our superintendent has to get involved, right? But at what point is it where you're working with people and you're being patient with them, and you realize that they're not being vulnerable, they do not accept this journey? At that point, what do we do? Because I feel like if we still have those people in our system, how are we really going to move this work? So that's kind of where I'm at, and why I joined the book club, because I've had the opportunity to work with people who clearly don't want to do the work. And it's very frustrating.
Do you want me to answer?
Yes, this is your time until 6:30, so they can have Q&A with Ken.
To do, Brittany, is you can hold them accountable. There are standards and all of that within the system that can hold people accountable, but you cannot make someone listen if they don't want to listen. That's why it's so important to begin with something like implicit bias. You know, I think it's a people too often begin with diversity because that's so easy. So there'll come a point where you'll say, you know, I can't continue to do this. There's a belief system here that is not changing. So you go to the people that are going to listen. And sometimes peer pressure is better than trying to beat your head against the wall, changing someone's opinion. That's not going to happen, you know, just because you're speaking to them about it. It's like a teenager. Parents tell them something and they don't listen. Their friend tells them something and they change the next day, you know. So I think you need to move forward with the work and remember that as much as possible, you address the problem, not the person. Too often we try to address the person, it becomes personal. Once it becomes personal, the conversation changes. So always separate the person from the problem.
Thank you. I just want to share one thing
Thank
because I
you.
was going through something and I reached out to Ken, Brittany, and also Dolores. And what I was shared with me, and it was a very stressful situation, was create a guiding coalition as well. And there's work behind guiding coalitions. Am I saying it right, Ken? Where you kind of build your team of people to support the problem, not the person. And we can talk about that later off record, but yeah, guiding coalition.
You need support from each other, folks. It's difficult work.
All right, you guys have 8 minutes to ask Ken anything you want.
Add a little bit something, Kimberly, because you know, this really is one of my interests. So something I've been using a lot has been the cultural proficiency continuum, because that gives me the language to help with feedback, but also understanding, like, I know we have urgency, right? We see what's going on. We see our percentages of suspensions. We see disproportionality and grading, you name it, across the board, right? And we have urgency. And I think when we read about it and we understand the issue at hand and we experience it ourselves as minorities, then we have urgency in fixing the issue, you know? But we got to understand that it's not going to be a fixing the issue in reality. That's going to take a very long time. And we have to understand that for now, even though we have the urgency, and that could be something that causes desperation, because I know it does in me, you know, when I see it, relying on some of the things to start moving the work at least, right? So we got to start the work. So I rely a lot on the cultural proficiency continuum for the language piece and being able to, like Dr. Magdeleno explained, gathering the evidence to have those discussions, because a lot of times I like to think of good intent. I know they have intent, but now how does the implicit bias or their own personal bias get in the way, right? So being able to have those discussions, because we do have to confront it and we have to call it out when it's happening, else it's never going to stop, right? But with the right language in mind. And then I also really like the cultural proficiency inquiry of action plan, because then as a side, it helps me understand where our issues are. And I know that's one of the data pieces I discussed with my own school around the suspensions with boys, just boys themselves. You know, that was the highest percentage we had. So then being able to use that inquiry of action plan, so I can really think about it as I'm aligning my SPSA plan. So that really helped me in this year, at least aligning my SPSA to this work. So just 2 resources that I've been using.
Thank you.
I thank you for sharing that. And as Dr. Magdeleno said, I think the frustration is that it's really sad to hear that we have a long way to go when we are in 2019. And we have administrators that have been in this business. And when I say administrators, I mean superintendent level and all of these things that have enough information, data, statistics that we don't need to continue asking the same questions because we have too many instances of what needs to happen at this point. So that's the frustration.
Yeah, and
I hear you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we know.
Right.
The issue, and completely understand, but the issue is often power.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how much power, well, let me rephrase that. With the power that you have, what can you impact? Very often, we try to impact certain behaviors when we have no power to change those behaviors. And that is absolutely frustrating. I can't tell you how many times I was threatened with different actions because I was so frustrated with the system. However, as I gained power, and when you're a director of a doctoral program, you have quite a bit of power, you know, at a place like Fresno State. You learn to use the power that you have. And that's why it's important. And that's why I have spent so many years developing leaders of color, developing women to be in those leadership roles because, and what's even more important is when you get in that role, do something. Don't say, well, all of a sudden I'm a principal. Well, I'm going to get my good paycheck and I'm going to do something else. You're only good for that day because tomorrow they may switch you. So do what you need to do that day. You know, it is about power. We can use a lot of terms, but anytime you're talking about race and you're addressing culture, ethnicity, class, it's about power.
Right.
And people do not want to give up power.
Right.
That's why I'm so I'm very insistent that anyone that can is get your master's, get your doctorate, and that doesn't guarantee you'll be in a position of power, but it gives you access. It gives you access. And don't be afraid of moving because you need to move sometimes in order to get that power, get that experience. That, you know, and that's the way it is. I know it's difficult, but that's, and then come and see me. I have coffee almost every day of the week. Well, not right now, but almost every day of the week with people who just want to say, I'm pissed off. I've been doing this for 19 years and no one's listening. Well, you know what? I'm listening. We can give you a place to go and be able, and you'll see that there are more people involved than you think. Too often we try to do the work by ourselves. And you can't do that because you just get beat up. Am I telling you?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Marilyn, good to see you.
I have to unmute it. Dr. Magdeleno, I have to say, you know, your clear voice meetings are very inspiring. I do agree. I enjoy them and we learn and we're able to bring back so much to our sites and just even if it's just our own reflections to know how to move forward with the work. So yes, thank you.
This Saturday, if you like, I'll give the Zoom address to Kimberly. We have one person coming in from, or zooming in from Colorado, another one from Wisconsin that are members.
Oh, that's great. Yes, I would like the address, please.
I'll give that to Kimberly.
Okay. Nice seeing you.
Seeing you. I'm going stir crazy here, girl.
I hope your health is doing good too.
I'm staying healthy. Thank you.
I hear you.
Kimberly, you're on mute, I believe.
Okay, because my daughter playing loud music in the back. So I wanted to share something on page 16. I don't know if somebody would read it. I've been talking the whole time. On page 16, starting at a holistic approach. That's what something I wanted to close with. If anybody would read it and stop at the end of that paragraph, and just food for thought as we reflect on this call. And please send questions if you want for Ken later. I'll send it to him as well, and myself as well. Any suggested people you want me to have on as well. But if anybody would read that, please. I can't hear you, Magdeleno. Starting at a holistic approach on page 16.
From this book?
Yes. Page 16 in the middle of the paragraph, first paragraph on page 16. A holistic approach in the middle.
Okay, I'm going to read the paragraph.
All right, go ahead.
Through a successful approach in which diversity and equity are embraced as is and not as an issue to be problematized, you can improve staff and student morale by improving the effectiveness of communication, reducing complaints, and creating a more comfortable and rewarding climate for all people in the school. As an educational leader, you can learn concepts and skills and translate these into new initiatives, curricula, programs, and activities that will enrich school life for all students and staff. As greater awareness and understanding develop in schools, so too will the awareness and understanding of the larger community be expanded. Very few educators intend to hurt their students or their colleagues. An effective educators intend to, many few, an effective approach to issues of diversity provides everyone with the information and skills that educators need to avoid unintentional slights or hurts, i.e., microaggressions, and to improve the quality of life for school and home communities.
Thank you. Last part. I'm going to read this part. It goes with it. Up at the top, see right there? A holistic approach to issues that emerge in diverse environments provides tools for examining the school and the district to eliminate inappropriate policies, procedures, and practices that create negative outcomes for many students. If teachers and administrators have not been prepared to teach, lead, or work with people who differ from them, then the educational leader must take the initiative and create a learning community so that everyone can master these skills as part of their professional learning. So I wanted to close with that. Food for thought, and thank you for reading, Magdeleno, because it's all relevant to what we do and to what we were speaking to about having the support of leaders. And the frustration is there. And at the end of the day, people don't want to hear this, but I kind of heard it in what Ken was saying. If we're in a space where we're not supported, I'm not telling people just to leave their jobs, but we need to be in a place where you're supported or with a team that supports you. So as human beings with one life to live, that's my food for thought for everybody. And I thank you for signing on. And if you are frustrated in any way with any, I'll just say aspects of learning about cultural proficiency or having support, I encourage you to create a guiding coalition, connect with some of the leaders I'm going to have on Let's Talk Culture Thursdays. Let's talk about it. Let's get you connected. Let's get resources, because the more resources and support and the more sharper your tools are, you'll be able to navigate the system in a more powerful and there's going to be problems. There's going to be pressure, but it just gives you more power and voice to lead you to where your heart desires for you to be. Okay. So Thursday at 5:30, I'm sorry I went over 4 minutes. I want to respect everyone's time. Thank you, Dr. Magdeleno, for your leadership. And it's helping shape a lot of us to be who we are today. Again, you guys can comment on this live on my Facebook page and invite a friend. Come back on Thursday, read chapter 2. Let's do it again. I hope to see everyone back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.